What's up? So on Thursday, we did a video looking at the best weapon from every season of Fortnite, and you guys really seem to like that format, so I wanted to do the same thing, but the reverse. So in this video, what we're going to be doing is looking at what was the worst weapon from every season in Fortnite. Going through the notorious, the bad, and the downright awful. And lastly, before we do get into it, I'm just going to encourage you to subscribe to the channel. There's been something going on with people getting lit on fire who aren't subscribed to the channel. Weird, I don't know. So, may as well hedge your bets and hit that button. With all that said, let's get into it. So first things first, we're going to start off with the preseason. Now, just like our best guns video, the preseason of Fortnite is a very interesting spot. Weapon balance had not yet been achieved at all, and there were some really good weapons and some really bad weapons. A few go-to weapons in your mind might be that of the revolver, perhaps the semi-auto pistol, maybe even the tactical SMG, but I think it is pretty firmly going to be the original SMG. At the time this weapon was called the SMG, some people have now referred to it as the machine pistol, as there's another MP5 style SMG that had taken its place in season 4 or 5. It's the original SMG, and this has been pretty much deemed as one of the worst weapons to ever grace Fortnite. This thing was landing 11 damage with not great accuracy that you might expect for an SMG. SMGs didn't get their big buff until season 4, so not only was this a weak weapon, it was also very inaccurate. And actually, moving on to the first season of Fortnite, I think it's pretty safe to say that this was also still one of the worst weapons. Nothing really changed with the original SMG, so it pretty much stays as the worst gun in the game. However, there was another weapon in the game that I think deserves a mention, and that was the wall dynamo and zapper trap. You see, these two traps acted similar to the damage spike trap we know and love today, but it made noise. At the time, there wasn't really any intention for this thing to be something you would use in build fighting because build fights didn't exist. Instead, the purpose of this weapon was to put in a house and wait for someone to walk in and get hit with it. I mean, that's literally how they advertise it in the original Fortnite trailer. But by the time season 1 was rolling around, people were starting to get wise to, that sound means that there's a trap in here. I'm not gonna go in there. So by this point, these traps were really just becoming obsolete. I remember getting a few kills with these very early in Fortnite, but by the time season 1 was here, the player base had caught on and these things were also awful. They would go on to get revamped at the end of season 1, but that's for another story. Now moving on to season 2, this is where Fortnite changes quite a bit. So there was no first shot accuracy in the game, but the SMG finally got vaulted. There was already a tactical SMG and the silenced SMG had been added, so having just a worse version of those two weapons didn't make any sense. So with the original SMG being vaulted halfway through the season, it's time for a new crown. And that, I think, is actually going to be a tie between the revolver and the burst assault rifle. And I know what you're thinking, that these weapons aren't that bad, but what you have to remember about this time is that it was before first shot accuracy had been added. So I've talked about the bursts in great detail, and really the big issue with the burst is bloom. You have first shot accuracy, where you're always going to land that first shot, but not necessarily the two that come after it. So the issue with first shot accuracy was that even that first shot wasn't guaranteed to land. That made this weapon terrible for anything longer than a medium range encounter. And the exact same thing went for the revolver. These were meant to be medium and long range weapons, but they couldn't even be used due to bloom. You could line your sight up perfectly with a revolver, and if you just get unlucky, your shot misses. The only time that these weapons were effective was at a close range where there were much better weapons to take the place of them. And so really before first shot accuracy existed, these weapons were garbage. But moving on to season 3 and the introduction of first shot accuracy, everything changed. The revolver got better, the burst got better, and we saw the introduction of the hand cannon. So with those weapons and the original SMG out of the picture, what takes the place, the crown of the worst weapon? Well, it's actually going to be the crossbow. You see, first added as a Valentine's Day promotion at the very end of season 2, it was revamped and added in to be a permanent weapon in season 3. And oh my, it was bad. The crossbow did 75 and 78 damage. When you run the math on those, there's literally no difference in time it took to kill. And on top of that, they shot extremely slow. The crossbow is another weapon that I think truly goes down as one of the worst of all time. Debatably top 3 worst weapons ever in Fortnite. But Epic actually did a pretty good job of listening to the community, seeing no one was using these weapons, and removed them at the end of Season 3. So with all the bad weapons either removed or buffed, it was finally time for the weapon that's been in the back of your mind to take the crowning spot at the lowest spot? Okay, what I'm getting at is in Season 4, the worst weapon was actually the semi-auto pistol. Probably a weapon that a lot of you had been expecting for most of this list. Actually, it wasn't that bad in the original Fortnite. Part of that was that it actually benefited from no first shot accuracy. More specifically was that it had no fall off damage, so you could just shoot at really long range and it would actually benefit from bloom. You could just land random headshots and all this stuff for a weapon that was not designed to be shot long range. But with the removal of the crossbow and the introduction of ranged fall off, well, there's really no other weapon to put here than the semi-auto pistol. I do want to give an honorable mention though to the scoped thermal assault rifle. This is a weapon that I think I've gauged from you guys. It's something that hasn't sat well. Very few people enjoyed using that weapon over the scoped AR, and I just don't think it was a very good weapon. Now moving on to Season 5, we've got an interesting spot here. Season 5 was by far the hardest choice. So gray pistol still in the game, literally unchanged. Probably deserves a mention. Nothing changed with the scoped thermal, so also probably deserves a mention. But the weapon that really stands out to me as being terrible this season is actually the pump. And this is kind of a twofold issue. So in Season 5, the pump saw some major nerfs. Even after double pump had been removed in Season 4, it was still a pretty good weapon capable of one-shotting. You just couldn't spam it. It was like the pump we know today. Or maybe like the pump from the end of Season 10. But the pump in Season 5 saw some nerfs. And actually, now that I think about it, the nerfs that it received played very similar to how the lower pumps are today. They went from doing 90 and 95 damage with a 2.5 times headshot multiplier to 80 and 85 with a 2 times. That meant that the most you could do with the pump is 160-ish damage, which is exactly how the lower pumps are today. The problem though, again, is twofold. There weren't any better pumps at higher levels, and SMGs were absolutely dominant. So it's like not only were they not very good, it's that the only time you could use them, there was a weapon that completely outclassed it. So in Season 5, the pump was truly a terrible weapon to use. Now, moving on to number 6, honestly, the last 3 weapons we just talked about all probably deserve a mention here. But there's another weapon that popped up that I think stands out to Season 6 players, and that's the 6-shooter. You see, the 6-shooter has gone down in history as one of Fortnite's least favorite weapons. The 6-shooter was meant to be a sort of two-way weapon. You can use it long range, you can use it short range, but it's not good at either. And so because of that, the community really hated it. Getting it at the very start of the game, you might get lucky, be able to 3-pop someone real quick or snipe someone far away, but even then, it wasn't a great weapon. It'd be much better to just have an SMG and an AR than this thing. I just think people really remember this gun for all its flaws, and it truly is a hated weapon. Necessarily the worst, it could honestly go to the pump, common pistol, or thermal again, but I think it's at least a notable weapon. Now moving into Season 7, we've got a really fun gun to hate. This is the original Infantry rifle. Dude, again, I think the original Infantry rifle has got to be at least top 5 worst weapons ever. The thing that made this weapon so bad was that it didn't have hit scan, but instead followed the same weapon pattern as a sniper. Now, sniper bullet arcs makes sense and has always felt great in Fortnite. But with a weapon that is only landing 40s, lining up and really timing this weapon was a nightmare. And on top of that, it really didn't do a lot of damage, so it was just awful. Like seriously, probably one of my least favorite weapons ever. The only thing that I think even competes with this is maybe bottle rockets, which truly doesn't even deserve to be considered a true weapon. It's more like a structure damage device that happens to do damage to the player. So I think this one's gotta go to the Infantry rifle. Now, moving on to Season 8, it's gotta be the poison dart trap. Does anyone even remember this? No. Okay, I didn't think so either. This was a trap that you could set that had a range of 3 and would slowly do damage off the player once they got hit with it. You know, kind of how like poison works in every single video game, except the problem is that Fortnite is a very fast-paced video game and slow lingering damage is just not effective. The cannon is a weapon that might also be deserving of a mention, but it's again not really something that was intended to be a weapon. It was more like a secondary feature that it could inflict damage rather than being a primary purpose. As for the poison dart trap though, that thing got removed very quickly, so it was only around in Season 8. So with Season 9, there was a gaping hole ready to be filled for the worst spot. And this was a spot I actually had a lot of issues with as well. Now, I had considered the TAC SMG. Really, the reason it was bad was just simply because of the combat. This TAC served as a faster firing alternative to the pump, but the combat shot faster. The TAC had poor range and the combat had incredible. And on top of that, the TAC also didn't outclass the combat with damage. So worth a mention that I don't think it's quite fair to say that the TAC was the worst gun in the game. No, I think it's actually gonna go up to the proximity grenade launcher. This was a weapon designed to be noob friendly that actually was just awful. I can't tell you how many times I got killed by this thing because I never got killed by it. It was a weapon designed to explode as soon as it got close enough to a player to cause damage to them, but it went slow, had a really loud noise, and even when it managed to hit you, would only do 70 damage. To me, I really didn't mind this thing because noobs would use it, try to peek out at me, and you know, you can just get an easy snipe off on them. It really just wasn't an effective weapon. It didn't do enough damage, and I honestly think was really just pure garbage. And while it did stick around for a bit in Season 10, there was a weapon introduced in Season 10 that was worse. I'm gonna say it's another weapon I think deserving of the top 5 worst weapons spot. If you've been keeping track, so far we have 4. The original SMG, the Crossbow, the Infantry rifle, and this spot right here. And what this spot is for Season 10 is actually the automatic sniper rifle. Now I know a lot of people probably didn't play Season 10, that was probably like the lowest point of Fortnite, but this thing was bad. It had drop off, I guess. Kind of like the same thing as the Infantry rifle, but it was scoped and it was automatic. I don't know. I don't even understand what the purpose of this weapon was. See, the scoped assault rifle, also automatic. So what is this automatic sniper then? They're both automatic sniper rifles. One, like what? But the automatic sniper rifle was just awful. Like just truly terrible. Just not a viable weapon that served any use whatsoever. But fortunately, it was vaulted at the end of Season 10. And that takes us to Fortnite Chapter 2. Now, a few weapons that I'll probably get tossed around here, I think most notably, apparently from you guys, the green RPG. I might throw out the common pistol, but could we maybe agree that it's the common sniper rifle? I can't even find gameplay of this thing, but it did exist on day 1 of the launch of Chapter 2. The only thing that makes this such a standout weapon is that it only does 95 damage as a bolt. So even if you line up that spicy shot, you're not gonna kill someone with it. It also had very slow reloads, so it was really just not a viable weapon. I guess common pistol, or again green RPG, or maybe even gray RPG, it probably also deserved mentions, but personally, I think I would give this last one up to the gray sniper rifle. And ladies and gentlemen, with that said, we are done our list. So thank you guys for making it all the way through on this one. We mentioned kind of this like ongoing top 5, top 3 scenario. I'm curious with you guys how you would actually rank those. So what I said was OG SMG, Crossbow, Infantry rifle, and automatic sniper rifle as all being in the top 5 worst weapons. I'm interested to hear from you guys how you would rank those 4 and what you would actually put in as the 5th as far as worst weapons go. Is it something from this list? Is it something else? Please let me know. And other than that, that's gonna wrap things up. So if you guys did enjoy this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you are already subscribed, just leave a like, all that good stuff. I will talk to you later, and peace out, you freaking nerds.